Yes, let's go live. What do you say? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unfound Live for November 3rd of, what is it, 2025. I am, of course, Unfound Live's host, Ed Denzel, and I have to fix something very quickly. This computer that I'm using is not plugged in for some reason. Just one moment. There we go. All right. Okay. Looked at the thing and it wasn't charging. I was like, well, this isn't going to last long. I have a spectacular show set up for all of you tonight. As you can see in the title, of course, I promised anything that is in the title gets covered during the live show. We always want to make that promise to all of you, although we certainly have at least one other very important item that I must cover tonight. In fact, I'll probably do that first once we get to the true crime section. I'm going to talk about the disappearance of Kortne Stouffer. That is the disappearance that I've picked out for this week, a well-known one. Certainly one with a ton of facts out there, but still, all these years later, still unsolved. Plenty of choices of suspects in her disappearance, but I will get into all of that. Going to did read some articles that were featured at the time and have looked at some other coverage, looked at the Charlie Project, tried to get to a point where I thought you think that I'm in shape enough to cover it. Of course, not an expert. I'll do my best, though. I want to talk about these Las Vegas cremation remains, cremains, they call them, that have been discovered outside of Las Vegas in a little town called Searchlight near there. Very familiar with Searchlight. I used to go through that little speed trap of a town all the time when I was driving down to like Lake Havasu and where else down there, some other places down there. So I am familiar with that area, that little town, going down there. Oh, Bullhead City, go down to Bullhead City, Arizona, down that way as well. Had to go down there for the work that I was doing at the time. And then I want to talk about where police go wrong. This is a topic that, of course, I talk mostly about with disappearances, but I'm going to apply it to something else personally that I experienced in the last couple of days. Luckily, there was a witness to it, my brother Michael, and we'll get into that as well. Some of you already know if you saw the previews of this live show, then you know what happened a few days ago. I'm going to get into all of that, where police go wrong, and how I think that my experience, may take us in a direction of also understanding what is it that the police get wrong about disappearances as well, maybe. In addition, like I said, I have some other things that I want to certainly cover tonight before we are done over the next 2 hours. As you are watching tonight, I always ask you, I don't demand it, maybe jokingly demand it, that you give this live show a thumbs up, share it, like it. If you are a new subscriber or new person to Unfound, never heard of it before until this previous week and found out this live show was happening tonight, then please, while you are watching / listening tonight, please subscribe to this channel And for all of you, please consider supporting Unfound through Patreon, PayPal, right here on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, join the discussion group, like the page, share the page over there. Go to the newly refurbished website, the Unfound podcast.com. A lot of different ways you can support what we do here. And I'm going to get up from my chair again to shut off that lamp over my left shoulder on the right side of your screen, because I think it's a little distracting. So hold on a moment. Okay. All right. I usually like to leave all the lights off in the background. So what has gone on since, by the way, one more way you can support Unfound is while you are watching tonight, you, depending on the app that you're using, whether you're watching on a phone or laptop, tablet, you can hit the super chat button down there underneath where all the comments get made on the show while it is happening in real time. You can contribute through the super chat button as well. Would appreciate that. So since last week, of course, last Monday, I told you that very, very likely, wasn't assured, but very, very likely that I would be going on an RV trip with my two brothers, my brother Michael, who is the oldest brother, but the second oldest sibling. And then my brother Michael, or brother Brian, who I probably talk about a lot more on here because until very, very recently, he lived right not too far away from me. Now he lives over in Polk City, about an hour and 20 minutes away, depending on what time of day it is. But, well, looky there. There's Marty. How about that? Well, I am stunned. Marty making an appearance after a long time. Good to see you, Marty. I'll get to everybody in a moment. But we did go on that trip. Michael did come in town Tuesday night. I went over there Tuesday night, slept over. I actually slept in the RV outside that night in Brian's driveway. And then we left on Wednesday morning, maybe around 9:30. And we made it down to Key West just as the sun was going down. We parked like in this public park there and went out on this kind of dock, long dock, jetty, whatever you want to call it. And we saw the sun go down. It was a good time. And you should know in the riding in the RV, Brian did the driving. Michael got to sit in the front passenger seat of the RV. And then I sat on the couch right behind my brother Brian. So I was on the passenger side, sitting on this couch that runs like long ways behind him. And as I expressed on Facebook, riding in an RV like that is like flying in a private jet, except you're on the ground. It is spectacular. Just sitting here, chilled out. You got your legs kicked out. You got the big windows and everything. It was spectacular. And Michael was all lounging in the passenger seat, which is like a lazy boy chair almost. And Brian's doing the driving. It was pretty cool. A lot of stories and things. And I was kind of on some roads that I'd never been on before in Florida. But we made it down to Key West, saw the sunset, and then we were going to try to find a place to park that RV in Key West and maybe walk around downtown, and we could not do it. And this is where the first funny story starts. I kind of was in charge, being that I'm kind of used to maybe doing such things. I had my tablet with me, and so I started looking for a nearby RV park that we could park at that wasn't too far away, that if we wanted, we could take an Uber or Lyft back down into the downtown area because there was just no place. There was really, it's pretty crowded down there. We thought about a couple choices that we might have, could have done, but kind of said maybe we shouldn't. And we ended up, so I found this RV park that wasn't that far away. It was just few miles away from downtown. Kind of late in the day. It was already dark and everything. But, we'll take a chance, see how much it's going to be, whatever. And so I just gave Brian directions. He followed them. And we just drove right into this RV park. There was no gate. There was no office. There really wasn't even like a lit sign or anything else, but it was an RV park. And there were RVs parked there, trailers parked there, pickups, with trailers on the back. It was certainly an RV park, but it's dark. I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. Well, nobody's charging us or anything else. We were really, but it was an RV park and there were cars there and didn't think that much about it until we stopped. And that's when we discovered that actually that RV park was on Department of the Navy property. And that the only people who were allowed to be there were actually people who were in the military or people who were retired from the military. Now, keep in mind, there was no gate, there was no guard, nothing. Keep that in mind. So we find this out after we're already parked. And so we, thought, well, nobody's around. There's nobody cruising around. Nobody came over to check us out or anything like that. Nobody asked for ID. There's just nothing going on. There were people, you could see lights inside these campers and everything. Everybody minding their own business, and it wasn't even close to full. And it was right there on the water. It was beautiful. So we just kind of stayed there. And we were there. We got there maybe around 9. And we liked the location so much. And I think the baseball game was on or something. And I think we were listening to it. And we stood outside for a little bit on the water. And, there weren't a lot of lights around, so you could see a lot of stars. It was just beautiful out there. And then we go back inside. So we're hanging out on this military base. And even though, like I said, it's not like we broke in, we didn't bust through a fence or anything. But really, I guess we weren't supposed to be there. But there was no, like I said, there was nobody doing anything. It was just, there was nothing going on. So about 11 o'clock, I went to the bathroom in the RV. And while I'm in the bathroom and Michael's just chilling out, sitting out there at the table or whatever else, I can hear this banging on the RV. Boom, 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 boom. And I thought, well, here we go. And Brian, luckily, he's the guy that owned the RV. It's in his name and everything. And so he goes out there, and I really can't hear everything that is being said between him and whoever pulled up. And the fact is, I never did see this person. But Brian comes back in and says, we have to leave now. Now. Like now. Like, yes, like 10 minutes ago. Or like, we're talking here in the present, but we were so quickly we should be gone. It'd be like, an hour ago. Because the whoever this guy was, I don't know if he was security or what. And we figured out later, it very well may be that because of this government shutdown thing, one of the cutbacks that they've had is there's no guard or anybody at this place. That's why we were able to just drive in like we did. Although I will continue to insist, if you look at Google, just the general map or whatever else, it never says anything about the military or anything until you get into the technicalities of that place. So this guy, person, I think it was a guy who's in a truck or something, says you have to leave now. And so, the thing is, the RV, the sliders that this RV has were already out. It has these sliders, makes everything bigger inside. They were already out. We were leveled and everything else. And that takes a little time to reverse all of that. And this guy was so anxious about us leaving that I think he thought like we were delaying or being slow for some reason. He came back while we were putting everything back and said, "You're leaving, right? You're leaving. You got to go now. You're leaving, right?" He came back and insisted. He was very anxious. And I will tell you that later, after we were looking back, once we left, we were looking back at this and the three of us were thinking, could he have been afraid that he was going to get in trouble for us being there? That if some civilians got caught there, that he was going, and I don't even know the position. I don't know. All I know is this person is the guy who came banged on the door, said we got to go, but it very well could be that, there was something, he might have missed something or something like that. And thought he was going to get in trouble. I have no idea. That is a guess. Because he sounded very anxious. Very, very anxious. Even though he established, it's not like we, had a meth lab that we were on, we were there in a meth lab or anything like that. We weren't, there was there any alcohol? And it might've been some wine that my brother Brian or Michael got, but that was the only alcohol in the place. No, of course, no drugs, nothing like that. Just three brothers hanging out, all sober, just hanging out, having a good time, talking baseball, talking stories, just chilling out. That's all we were doing. But this guy was anxious for us to go. So we finally got everything put back together. And it wasn't like he just said, we'll leave. He made us follow him out of he didn't just say, well, get out of here. He made us follow him out of the place. Even though we'd just come in 2 hours, we knew where the exit was. He made us follow him. And, we were we were a little, I guess, a little nervous. I was not overtly nervous or anything. Because I was thinking, you know what? If we were real in trouble, they wouldn't allow us to be driving out of here. They would have just done something right there. But when we were pulling out of there was some sort of police car sitting there. And that, was like, well, maybe he's like the hounds to the wolves or whatever that saying is. He's leading us out there so the police can pull us over or do something. And we drove by and luckily nothing happened. Luckily. So we got out of there. But once we were out on the road, and it's going to continue to be a funny story, we're going to be able to brag about how we, broke into, it's exaggerating just a little bit, broke into a, military onto military, United States military property, because that's what it ended up being, looking back at it now. That's what it was. That's where we were. That was military property, and we were on it, and we were not supposed to be there. So we can laugh about it now, But, and like I said, I was never overtly nervous or anything. I think that if there had been a problem, it would have been a problem right away. It wouldn't have been, you have to get out of here. It would have been, you stay here. All three of you come out here and we're going to, it wasn't anything like that. So we had a good joke about that. We had a good laugh about that. And what we ended up doing is parking in the parking lot, sleeping in the parking lot of another RV place for free, and then leaving before it opened the next morning. So that's how we spent Wednesday night into Thursday morning. And we ended up getting up at so we went to bed maybe at 12:30 or something. We found that place around 12:30. And then we got up about 6:30 to get out of that parking lot before that office opened for that RV place. And we got on Route 1, headed back toward the mainland of Florida. So we didn't get to, we didn't get to do any unfortunate adventuring down there in Key West or anything. Because we drove through downtown Key West a couple times trying to find a parking place. And for a Wednesday night, there were quite a few people walking around. It looked like a very, very cool place. Hopefully maybe we'll get to do that next year with a little better planning. We'll be able to get this done. And in fact, I would say the only real flaw of this whole thing is there wasn't any planning. We were just kind of winging it. And I think had we planned it maybe a little better, beforehand, what it was actually going to be and everything, probably could have made it happen. However, we certainly would have spent more money than we did because those RV parks getting down that way, getting close to Key West, not cheap, as you would imagine, not cheap at all. So there's that. So we ended up driving back. We ended up getting at 6:30, and we ended up going to the Mikasaki casino. We made it to the Mikasaki casino near Miami on that Thursday morning eventually, and took a snooze and everything else. So that's kind of a funny story. And so then, we spent Thursday and then Friday. We went over and had a funny story over there. I'm not going to get into that now, but we actually made it back. Remember, things had gone a little more smoothly. I could see us not coming back to maybe Saturday, maybe Saturday night, but they wanted to see a buddy of theirs down in Estero and we couldn't see him. That would have probably taken up some time. So we ended up getting back at I don't even know what it was, 2 a.m. No, what was it? Let's see here. Yeah, 2:30 in the morning. I don't even know what it was. 2:30 in the morning, or really, really early on Friday morning. So very, very early on Halloween morning. But we covered quite a bit. I didn't do driving of the RV at all. Michael did some driving. We went right past that place called, what is it? Alligator Alcatraz, right down there on Route 41 at the bottom tip of Florida. We went right past the entrance to that because we were taking back roads. So that was a good time. So we had a good time. Like I said, next time, probably plan it a little better. But it was a really good time. And like I said, all I had to do, I was the navigator. I had my tablet out. I had the map in front of me and everything, and on Waze or Google Maps or whatever it was. And I was just telling my brother, Brian, what to watch out for and where to go and where to turn. That was really my job, sitting in the back. And then Michael's job is the co-pilot up there. He was like Brian's eyes, watching out for things and helping him. So we were a really good team, in that RV, going down the road. So, and funny stories and stuff, of course, they have most of the stories being that they grew up together and they're very close in age, going through a lot of stories from high school and college. And then my brothers lived together out in Salt Lake City, Utah for some years, and truck driving stories. And It was a good time. So let's see who's in here, and then I will continue. Hello, Pookley. Good to see you tonight, Pookley. I know sometimes you don't get here. I always see your message later. Good to see you. Tech, Howard, good to see you. Fishing, good to see you. D, what's going on? I'm doing good. Hello, Mary. Charlie, hearing about the adventures of his three uncles. Marty, good to see you. It's been a while. Lisa, picked a bad time to call me. Yeah, you tell your sister not to call you on Monday evenings. That is forbidden, Lisa. Sorry about your Chiefs yesterday. Marty, great to see you, Ed. I finally got a Monday off. I had to make a surprise return. It is a surprise. Oh, Key West. I love Key West. Irish Kevin's is a great place for a drink. I'll remember that for next time, Marty. Thank you. Hello, Dee. Hello, The Cake. Good to see you. Amy, Marty. Charlie says, act first, apologize. Yeah, later to ask for forgiveness than for permission. I agree. Charlie, that's kind of the situation we got into. Marty says, that's so crazy, Marty. He might have been the guard that wasn't at his post. Could be. I mean, that is a thought. That is a thought, Marty. I don't know. Maybe if anybody down there, if he hears this live show, maybe I'm going to get him in trouble. I don't know. Marty, I think it's crazy because usually everyone in the Keys is laid back. You guys must have been in the same area 51 kind of place. Yeah, we didn't see any UFOs, though. Hello, Nina. What's going on? Serenity. Did you hear that? I've read about Jennifer. I don't think anything's going to go on there, Nina, to be honest with you. I think it's just more media coverage that seems like something and it's not, to be honest, with Jennifer Kessie's disappearance. But I did see that. Thank you for letting me know. And once again, I want to remind all of you that to give a thumbs up, like it, share it, subscribe while you are watching tonight. So that's just a little bit of the piece of the trip that we did. I slept on that couch that I sat on, and I slept fantastic. I absolutely, slept fantastic. And, it's a huge RV. It's like 40 feet long. It has a shower, took a shower in there on Thursday before we went into the casino. It has a refrigerator and stuff. It's really, really nice. I mean, really, really nice. And so we'd been talking about doing that for a while, and it's finally good to make it happen. It was a good dry run for the next time that we are able to do it, and I will be willing and able to do that. One more thing before I get into the true crime part tonight. Trivia, my team, we didn't play last Wednesday because I was on, I was with my brothers. It got canceled anyway because they had problems at the restaurant. Something was going on there. But it's Saturday. My brother Michael joined the other people that I play with, and we came in second place over there at Sharks, which was nice. All right, let's get to, for the next hour and a half, all the true crime stuff that I need to cover, and I need to start here. I just found out today, this is, at least for me, breaking news today, that the remains of Zach Carey, so, of course, just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, Chance Englebert's remains were identified. They were found this summer, finally scientifically identified. We know just last week or the week before, I talked about how Jesse Farber's remains were identified there in Pennsylvania. And now we have another unfound disappearance that has been resolved. Like, it's weird how it goes in waves, right? We'll go for a long time and then they'll happen in bunches. I don't know what that is, but I will read this to you. Zach Carey's remains. The remains had been found this summer. They were identified just within the last couple of days. So I'll read this article to you. Warwick County, Indiana. The Warwick County Sheriff says the body of a missing man was discovered on Friday in the Linville area. He says a hunter discovered the remains and called authorities. Detectives say the remains were taken to the morgue in Vandenberg County and positively identified as 38-year-old Zachary Carey of Evansville, Indiana, who had been missing since May of 2023. Carey had been last seen in the Linville area. That's all the article says. There's a variety of articles written, but they all essentially say the same thing. To remind all of you, this is a disappearance. Of course, Zach had some mental health issues. He had some drug issues. And the story was that a friend of his had dropped him off just on the street, just on this country road. And Zach had a history of living off the land, camping out and doing those types of things that people that suffer from mental health, people have addictions, as we know, tend to do. And this friend dropped him off, and Zach was never seen again. And it does sound to me, at least the way this article is written, that Zach's remains were found by accident. Of course, this is despite the fact that searches had been done for Zach at the time. I realized that when I did that interview, you might have read between the lines that the guest, might be thinking that the friend had something to do with it. I have to tell you that what I heard did not make me think that. And so the research is done. Nothing was found. And, his remains weren't found during any of their searches. And here along comes a hunter. Of course, it is, November now, or, it's hunting season, I guess. And the remains are found and have been identified as Zach's. I also did a map video for that disappearance, if you'd like to check it out after the live show is done. This is another one where it appears that I got it right. Again, for the most part, I got Chance Engelbart's wrong. I of course, did not think there's foul play. I don't think they're going to discover there's foul play, but it said, you know what? Don't think it's foul play. If he is found, it's going to be in the area. That's what happened. With Jesse Farber, he said he's probably out in those woods, not, very close to where everybody thought he was. That's where he was ended up being found, kind of near the search area. And no, if you're wondering, no, I've not yet had a chance to talk to the mother of at least one of his children, his girlfriend, about all this. Of course, she got called that night when he went missing. Being that I was with my brothers, I've not yet had a chance to talk to her about all of this. Maybe I'll do that before the live show next Monday. So I got that one right, and it does seem that I'm going to get Zach Carey's right in predicting that his remains probably are still in the area, and that is probably not foul play. And I am not surprised at all that he was found by accident. And keep in mind, for all three of these young men, they all had searches done for them. All of the searches found nothing. All of the remains were found by accident, by people who were out there who were surely not looking for these missing men, but found the remains anyway. And so this is, I guess, good luck. But too many of these disappearances continue to be resolved by luck. So, Zach Carey, our sympathies go out to his friends and family. And I think that now makes 41 or 42, maybe even 43 of Unfound's disappearances that have been resolved. I have to check that. But, we were, like I said, we went for quite a while with nothing being done on any of Unfound's disappearances. And now we've had 3 that have become news maybe within a month. Like as I said before, It's just the way it is. Sometimes no different than what was it in 2023, where we had Brandon Roberts, who was found alive. Bo Mann's remains were found, and some others all got resolved, all within like 2 months. In a 2-month span, 60 days, like 5 disappearances got resolved. And this seems to be a little bit like that. And that's all it takes to find these people. Yeah, sir, is luck. Yeah. If we could only cook luck up and use it, if we could only manufacture luck, that would make it a lot easier, D. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So Zach Carey, my insight is not surprised that it's been resolved. This did seem to me like, being the way I at least looked at it, that it was one that was very solvable under the right conditions, whether it was going to take another search or something. But it always seemed to me that it was one of the more solvable ones, especially since we covered it just over the year mark. I think that it was, he went missing in May of 2023. I think that that's a disappearance that might have been featured on Unfound in May of 2024, June of 2024, somewhere in there. I know it, but it gives me faith one day Summer Wells get to go home. Yeah. D, if she just walked off, if that little girl walked off and died in the elements, then yes. But if something else happened, then it might need more luck than it was needed for these disappearances that I've just talked about here. Just hard for me to say, D. So Zach Carey, if you've not yet listened to that episode, maybe make some time to go do that. And of course, listen to it with the idea, well, this is one that was resolved this way, and see if that squares up with what you hear while listening to it. All right, let's move on to the disappearance that I picked out for tonight's live show, as I've been doing for a few months now. I've been picking out a somewhat well-known disappearance that has not yet been featured on Unfound. Take a look at it just using the public material. I do, give some opinions on what I think my best guess is and everything, but I try not to do too much conjecture. And in fact, I think for all of these, I try to ask, there are certain things that I'd like to know more about that I couldn't find in the public. And that's what I did last week, of course, with the disappearance of Lars over there in Bulgaria from so many years ago when he ran out of that airport. Just as I, did with that one, asking more questions. Well, I'd like to know who planned that trip and that they'd gone on that trip before. I'd like to know a lot more about all of that. So I'm going to do the same thing with Kortne's as well. So I'm going to read to you not all, but most of the Charlie Project description. It does seem there might be a couple of inaccuracies in it, which I'll try to cover and make sure you understand later. But I did read some blogs and some things, news accounts of it, just trying to look at everything, try to give myself as best a 3D idea on this. But of course, when you do that, sometimes things clash. Some facts and statements and things clash. I will try to do my best with what was given. All right, Kortne Stouffer, Stouffer. I will say before I get into this is the kind of disappearance that really challenges me as a person who does disappearances for his work. These are the kinds. I care about all of them. But, for example, just talking about Zach Carey's, certainly want to cover it, certainly want to help, certainly have insights and everything else, but not much of a challenge, at least to me, in making a solid prediction about what happened. Same way with Jesse Farber. At least for me, you may look at it different. For me, Chance Engelbart, those are not ones. Certainly, they're horrible that they stayed unsolved as long as they did. Certainly, complications with all of them and trying to figure out what happened and trying to prove that. But not where you look at it and say, man, this could go a lot of different directions. Well, Kortne's is one of those. And like I said, for me as a person who tries to get all of these right, it's a challenge. So Kortne was last seen in Palmyra, Pennsylvania on July 28th of 2012. She spent the evening out with friends in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, capital of Pennsylvania, and got into an argument with someone at the hardware bar. She returned to her top floor apartment in the 800 block of West Main Street. She lived with her boyfriend, who was under house arrest for driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs while underage. There was a party at the apartment where alcohol was served. The police arrived to break it up and arrested Stouffer's boyfriend for a probation violation. Now, this is one of the parts that is wrong. Actually, there was a party first at Kortne's, and in fact, the neighbor or a neighbor in the same house, right next door in the next apartment in this place, the building, said they were too loud. This person was the one who called the police. The police broke the party up. That is when Kortne's boyfriend got taken away. She then went out with others. She got into an argument with somebody at this particular bar, and then they came home. Of course, her boyfriend, who was only 20, she's 21, he's 20, he got taken away. So here on the Charlie Project, it kind of got twisted around. I just want you to remember that. Stouffer thought it was the downstairs neighbors who called the police on their party. That is correct. And she believed her boyfriend might spend an extended time behind bars as a result of his arrest. He ultimately only spent a week in jail. She and a male friend, who I think's name is Cody, got into an argument with the neighbors at 3 a.m., and the police responded to it. The police left at 3:50 a.m. with the disrupting parties back in their respective apartments. But the police came back only 22 minutes later because the same neighbors called them to complain that Kortne was stomping on the floor of her apartment. So you got the, upstairs neighbor, downstairs neighbor. They're arguing, and then Kortne's up above, and she's continuing. Even the police have already been there. She's banging on the floor, allegedly. And so once again, this is all just what the neighbor is saying because the police did show up. So the police show up. They knocked on the door of Kortne's place. No one answered. Neither she nor the friend who was there, and the guy admits being there, Cody, neither of them answered the door. Later, this friend, whose name is Cody, would say he was there but did not hear the police. That's his story. Now, here on the Charlie Project, it says no one answered knocks at the complaining neighbor's door either, so the authorities left again. That is not true. In fact, the downstairs neighbors did answer their door that last time. It was the upstairs Kortne and Cody who didn't answer their door. So, once again, trying to see through these things can sometimes be difficult. Stouffer's friend Cody stated he went to sleep, and when he woke up later that morning, she was gone and all her belongings were left behind, including her wallet, keys, shoes, cellular phone, dog, and her car. At first, Cody thought she was just sleeping in another room. So his story is that he's sleeping in some other part of the apartment. He thinks she's in her bedroom. The door is closed. He gets up, sees her stuff there just as he says it was the night before, and figures, well, she's still sleeping or something, and he had to go. And I guess he did see her car out there, didn't think anything of it. Of course, they had been up until at least 4 something in the morning anyway. No surprise. This is his story. I'm not saying you have to believe it. I'm not saying I necessarily believe it, but that's the story. Kortne was never heard from again, and there were no indications that any violence or a struggle had occurred in the apartment, and it did take a little while for people to realize she was missing. And when they did go back over to her place, of course, her boyfriend's still in jail. Cody is gone. And Brad is the name of the boyfriend. Cody was the friend who stayed overnight and admitted doing so. When they went in there, it was pretty much as Cody described. There's no signs of violence, no signs of a break-in, nothing missing, nothing stolen. So that was the situation. Of course, the police, now there is additional info that is not included in the summation that the summary that I just read there. Here's some additional info for all of you. And I know some of you are very familiar with Kortne's disappearance. I know there have been podcasts devoted to it and YouTube channels and everything else. It's mainly because of the circumstances, Hello, Jill. How are you tonight? Additional info for Kortne's disappearance. Cell phone records seem to confirm Cody's story from that early morning in that he left. He tried texting her. He tried texting her later. He tried texting her or calling her an hour after that. There was a video of him going into a local convenience store shortly after he says he left the house. So once again, cell phone records for Kortne and Cody seem to match up. What we don't know is who was the last person that Kortne texted or actually called, because her phone was left there. We don't know that. Maybe somebody knows that. Maybe I missed it in the information, but I don't have it listed here. But the cell phone records for Cody seem to check out with his stories, the pings and everything else. Polygraphs were given to Cody and the neighbors downstairs. Those results have never been made public. So it doesn't seem like anybody resisted being polygraphed. There were allegations made of a witness of bags being taken out of the downstairs neighbor's place. However, that place was checked and there was nothing of note was discovered. So I guess you could say, well, what is somebody trying to say? That Kortne went down there, got attacked. Did they cut her up and then take her out in bags? That happens. We know that, that happens. Fairly rare, but we know that it's, and we can all think of stories like that. But we also know that when you do something like that, there's going to be a lot of mess, a lot to clean up. And the police went in there and did not find evidence that anything like that occurred in that apartment. There's also a discrepancy about, like I already said, the complaining neighbors come to door that last time or not. I realize in the Charlie Project, it says they didn't. But I read some other places, like a timeline account, it says they did. So that last time when the police showed up, seemingly the downstairs neighbors, there were 3 of them, 2 men and a woman, did answer. And Cody admitted he left later that day despite Kortne not being there. He just said he wasn't sure. He just didn't see her. Did he try to knock on her bedroom door? Probably not. I mean, we've all been there. You get up and it was a long night and you get up and you have somewhere to be and, you look over your roommates or whoever's door and it's shut and you see the car out there. What do you just think? She's still sleeping or he's still sleeping. No reason to wake that person up. I'm going to talk to him later today anyway. And you leave. It very well may be that Cody did something to Kortne. But if he's saying, I just got up, thought she was there and left, I don't find that to be that suspicious. Maybe other people do. I do not. So here is some of my analysis. And these are questions and things that still, are sticking out to me about all of this. First of all, I'd like to know who is the owner of this. Well, maybe before I get into that, we should also add on that if Kortne walked off, there really isn't a nearby river. There's little bodies of water, but if she went into one of them, she surely would have been found by now. We have to remember this is July in Pennsylvania at night. It's beautiful. Doesn't sound like it was raining or anything. July nights in Pennsylvania are beautiful. Ask me how I know. Lived there for almost 28 years. They're beautiful at night. There is no chance that she died due to the elements. Like if she went out in January with just shorts and a t-shirt on, not like that. She could be out there all night. She could sleep in the woods and she would just be fine. All right. So that also has to be remembered. We also have to remember, I want to state, it doesn't seem that anybody saw someone of Kortne's description walking anywhere. The counter to that would be it's late. It's 3 or 4 in the morning. If she walked off for whatever reason, the odds of anybody seeing her in Palmyra, Pennsylvania at 4 in the morning are slim, getting close to none as you can get without actually being none. This is not a 24/7 city like New York City or Las Vegas, so we have to keep that in mind at all. But it should just be noted that, for the record, there weren't any sightings of any young woman walking the streets that night. And remember, her car was there. It seemed everything that she owned that she would take with her on something, trip like that was all left back at the apartment. So now getting it back to my analysis. One of the things I'd want to know is, well, not that I think the owner of the building had anything to do with it, but I would want to know more from the owner of the building about how long all of Kortne and her boyfriend Brad and these other people who are the complainers, I would like to know more about how long they had been living there at the time, what had been going on between them before this all happened. It very well may be that none of these neighbors had anything to do with their disappearance. But I would like to know their history if the owner of this building knows. That would be something to me. If, of course, I know the police are getting called. Well, was the owner of the building getting called too? Did the owner of the building go down there and give a talking to Kortne and Brad? And did they know that, about any ongoing problems regarding all of this? Because you have to remember, this is not an apartment building complex. This looks to be a big house, old house, that has been divided up into apartments. So there was a downstairs apartment and an upstairs apartment. I guess they had like stairs built on the outside or something. You could go up to the second floor. So it's upstairs, downstairs. Kortne and Brad are in the upstairs. These other three in the downstairs. Now, and I want to know a lot more about that. The interesting thing, though, I found is that going back and looking at the records, because I can do that, of the records of everybody who has lived at that address, Kortne is not on that list. But the parents of her boyfriend are. So his first name is Brad. His parents' first names are Brian, and I forget the woman's name. But it's obvious to me that Kortne, although she was living there, was not on the lease. And neither was her boyfriend, because her boyfriend was a year younger, is 20. It seems to me that the boyfriend's parents signed the lease, guaranteeing that, I guess, at least their son would pay the rent. Because their names are on the lease as living there. However, they surely did not live there. All this means is by the paperwork. We're just going by paperwork now. Kortne, there's no record of her, at least in the database that I use, that she was living there. But she was living there. How long that had been going on or anything, I have no idea. So we have to remember that if her boyfriend's going to jail and he's supposed to be living there because his parents signed for him, she's now living there, but it's not illegal or anything, but she's not, quote unquote, not supposed to be living there. So she's living there. The person who actually is leasing, living there in the apartment isn't there. How much this makes a difference for all the analysis, I don't know. But it is something, one more thing to consider, especially if Kortne was thinking, well, her boyfriend's going to jail for a while and she's going to be there by herself, and maybe she's going to have to pay the rent on her own, even though she's never signed anything, or she's going to get kicked out. All something to think about. Hello, Linda. Good to see you tonight. Thanks for joining in. Moving on. Whereas the people who were the complainers did have leases, you can find their names as living at that address back at the time. So they were all people who signed a contract to live there. Kortne did not. And this might figure into this argument situation. In addition, moving on with my analysis, in something that I read, not on the Charlie Project, but somewhere else, the allegation has been made that this downstairs neighbor called the police on purpose to get the boyfriend in trouble. And the reasoning is that there was all these parties going on upstairs. The downstairs neighbors knew this boyfriend, Brad, was only 20, but they knew alcohol and other things were being done there. So they called the police on purpose to get that boyfriend in trouble because they knew he was underage. That is an allegation at another spot, another website, blog, or something that has been made. So you should figure that into your calculations. An insight of mine is that the neighbors would never call the police if they caused the disappearance. So I know a lot of people are suspicious of those downstairs neighbors. I'm not. Simply for the fact that they kept calling. Now, they might have been making stuff. They might have been making stuff all up. I don't know. But what I do know is every time they called the police, they met the police when the police showed up. And, hey, yes, we're the ones that called, and here's what's been going on. And that last call surely would not have happened if they did something to Kortne. And surely, if they called the police and then something happened in the meantime, they would not have come outside and, greeted them. They would have, I think, done something else. And I did see where the time between that call and the police showing up was only like 20 minutes. And it's also hard for me to understand. It does seem that Cody and Kortne were up at the same time. He hadn't gone to bed yet. So how is it that she could go downstairs without him noticing? So I will tell you, even though I'm not done with my analysis yet, it doesn't seem to me like the downstairs neighbors, these two guys and a woman, are very good suspects to me, the way I put this information together today. Just something to think about. We do have to know, of course, with alcohol involved, and we have to remember, not only did Kortne get have a disagreement with the downstairs neighbors more than once, but she went out somewhere and got into an argument with people at some bar as well. This is where I would need to know more about Kortne and all this. What was going on with her that night? Was it just alcohol? Was it something else? Was this just simply being driven by her boyfriend getting taken away? When she went out, was she normally like this? These are things that I don't know, but they would be important to me in determining what if we were to hear that she was the nicest woman in the world. Well, then how do we square that with her getting in an argument at the bar that night? This would be, I'm not saying anybody would be lying, but we would have to start thinking about, well, what was going on with her? The issues, I don't know. It very well could be that she was just upset. Of course, she's 21. She's allowed to drink as long as she doesn't drive. She's over there at that bar. She's all sloshed up. And, we know how things can happen both for men and women. So there's that. Certainly knows, certainly something to think about. Thank you, Marty. Hello, Cranky. What's going on? D, did you see there was a arrest made on Michael Vaughn? I'm going to try to get to that, D, before we're done. Please allow me to continue with what I'm discussing. But yeah, I saw it. I don't know if I'm going to get to it tonight or not. But going back to Cody, you have to remember Kortne was 21. Cody, I think, was 29 at the time. Now, what's he doing there? Well, I suppose our thinking could go in one particular direction. I don't know anything about Cody. I don't know if he had a girlfriend at the time. Was he married at the time? Did he have kids at the time? Where he was living at the time? I don't know. But I will tell you, as a straight guy myself, what I think about when, young woman's boyfriend gets taken to jail and she's going to be home alone. Sometimes some guys might think that there's an opportunity there. Not for rape. I don't want to get crazy with this. Not rape or anything. Well, I'll just be that shoulder to cry on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Now, very well may be that maybe because there were problems with the downstairs neighbors that Cody thought, well, you know what? I better stick around, or I better stick around because Kortne doesn't seem like her usual self. Kortne's doing this. I better stay here just so something doesn't happen. What happens if those roommates come back up here and bust in and, want to beat, Kortne up? All those things are possible. But my first instinct goes to, was Cody hoping for some sympathy, sex? Let's just state it. Is it necessarily suspicious that he sticked around? Well, not for purposes of a disappearance, but we're all adults here for the most part, and we know how these things work sometimes. So I'd really, really, really have to know from Cody what he says all these years later. Of course, he would be 42 now. What was his reasoning for staying there? Because he didn't live there. What, was he that, well, I'm just too tired to drive. I'm too drunk to drive. I suppose those are good reasons. Hard to prove those reasons now. But we just have to realize that a guy who was not Kortne's boyfriend decided to stay there after they came back from that bar. I did read that her phone was next to her bed. That may be wrong. That's the way I took it. And it would leave me with the impression that she was at least planning to go to bed. Whatever happened here, she was on the verge of going to bed. I didn't see anywhere where anybody knew whether it was charging. Was it on a charger? Where the charger was or anything like that? I know this phone was left behind, and I thought I remember saying that it was in her bedroom. So for most people, if your phone's in your bedroom, that usually gets put there when you're going to bed, usually. So it seems that was on her mind before whatever happened. Whether she left her on or Cody did something to her, the downstairs neighbors, or whatever happened, sleep was in her near future. Of course, somebody could have staged it there. They could have staged everything. That just seems like a lot of work to me, and so I'm going to put that to the side. Pretty much reject it for now. I'll come back to something I discussed before. Is Corey leaving odd? I will say that it's not. It very well may be that he's responsible for Kortne's disappearance. But if he's going to say, well, I left because her bedroom door was shut, her car was out there, I just took it for granted she was in bed, she had a rough night, why? There's no need for me to wake her up. I'm leaving anyway. I'll just talk to her later. None of that seems suspicious to me, even though I realize that there is a timeline where something could have happened there that, if something happened during the process of the police showing up and Corey was in the process of killing, I'm not saying I believe this, but as an example, killing Kortne, and that's why they didn't come to the door, And then once the police leave and the neighbors go to bed and he carries her out and takes her somewhere and everything, I guess that could have happened. I don't think there's any fact to dispute that. But I'm not going to think that just because he left there and didn't check on her or anything, later that morning or whatever. And that's me. D, and if she smoked or not. I think there was something in there about cigarettes, I think, D. I didn't note that. There was video of Cody stopping at a convenience store shortly after he says he left the apartment. I'd be very interested to know what he bought. Was this a real stop, or was it a stop to establish an alibi? To say, hey, look at me. I'm right there like I said I was, I don't know what to tell you. Woke up. I told you I went to the convenience store. There I am. It could have been a staged alibi. And everything that happened could have happened at least a few hours. And going to the convenience store would not, really conceptually, theoretically stop him. It's still possible that he did do something to Kortne. The convenience store appearance does not rule that out. But like I said, I would like to know what he bought. If this was a staged disappearance, then he might not have been thinking that far ahead. If he went in to just get a pack of gum, that sounds staged. Whereas if he went in and bought a couple donuts and a coffee and some other things all together, then that doesn't seem staged. And I would like to know what was found outside. Yeah, D, I don't, there wasn't anything that I saw. Once again, I'm not saying there isn't anything out there. It was nothing that I saw. All I know is her car was there, parked in its usual spot. The windows were down on her car. I'm going to get to that. So let's talk about Kortne herself a little bit more. Let's just look at her as objectively as possible. Kortne was dating a guy with drug and drinking problems, and he was only 20. They were holding underage drinking parties in which Kortne was the only one of drinking age at these parties. All right. She was the one dating a guy with drug and drinking problems, but then she complains to the neighbors about them, saying you shouldn't have called the cops and everything else. So it puts Kortne, once again, I don't care about missing people's moralities and the choices that they make. I only look at those things because they have to be examined for disappearance purposes. And Kortne is not making the greatest decisions in her life at that time, at 21 years old. Let's just admit it. Moving on. It does seem then that night, if we were to believe the calls from the neighbor, that she was causing problems for the neighbors on purpose. Now, remember something very important about this night. The police got called at least 3 times. Kortne did not call the police, not one of those. All of the calling and complaining was coming from downstairs. Not once did Kortne or Cody call the police to complain about the people downstairs. It was the downstairs people complaining about the upstairs people, not the upstairs people complaining about the downstairs people. And so this really does make it look like Kortne, Cody, and whoever else are the guilty parties in all of this. In fact, being that they never called the police, that should tell us something. Something to keep in mind. I think this is so I think it's kind of the understated part of this disappearance. That the downstairs people, even though Kortne and people are complaining about them, they never called the police. The downstairs people called the police. And we've watched enough cops to know about this stuff. Her car windows were down. Now, we have to probably believe something. Kortne Stouffer was almost certainly drinking and driving that night. In fact, Cody might have been doing that too. But she drove back to her place in her car. Windows were down. I don't know if it rained that night. I'd have to know. Did she always leave her windows down? That seems like a bad idea in Pennsylvania. You leave your windows down in Las Vegas because it only rains like twice a year. Leaving your windows down at night in Pennsylvania sounds like a bad idea, but they were down. This could show us that Kortne was really, really out of it when she got home that night, even though she did make it home, probably drinking and driving. Luckily, she didn't kill anybody on the way home. What I find interesting, though, is Cody didn't put them up. He had to have seen her car there. He left. The windows are up, or the windows are down. Could be something there. He didn't notice that. He said he saw her car there, so he knew she was probably there. Didn't want to do her a favor. Maybe, well, if they're power windows without the key, you're not going to be able to put them up. Maybe that's it. Most cars these days do have power windows. Maybe that's the reason. He couldn't put them up because he didn't have the keys, or he could have gone inside. The keys were right there. Maybe he didn't know that. So maybe that's not as suspicious as it seems. We also have to understand something else about this last time when the police showed up and nobody answered the door. Kortne surely had to think that if she answered that door that last time, after this being the third call about complaints, she had to know if she answered the door, she was probably going to go to jail. This is something that I think, once again, on me, and that I've now read a little more in depth. I've known about Kortne's disappearance for a long time. But she had to know if the police showed up, she's going to jail. They've had enough. They've tried to talk to her. They've tried to do this. If we're to believe the downstairs neighbors, she's banging on the floor, and I've been in situations like this in apartments, mainly in Las Vegas, where this stuff happens. I never called the police once, but it wasn't like this bad. It's just one of the things once in a while. And they weren't really doing those things against me. It was just the way things were. I didn't take it personally or anything. But these things happen. But she had to know, police get called 3 times, she's going to jail. So we might look at that as the reason, if she were alive when the police showed up, that's the reason she didn't answer. She just was going to act like they weren't there. She had to know she was going to jail. And it probably, being that she was already acting up, she was probably drunk, who knows, and maybe had done other things, who knows what kind of situation would have been created if she had opened that door that last time. But I also think it's interesting, they answered the door all the other times. So did she not feel like she wanted to defend herself again? Did she not want to talk to the police and make complaints again, twisting everything around? That's also something to keep in mind. Answered the first 2 times, did not answer the last time. Of course, she probably might have been dead by that or something to consider. It's also important to understand there's nothing saying that she denied doing the stuff the neighbors said she did. They said she was jumping on the roof, their ceiling and all of that. There is nothing that I read that Kortne states that she denied doing that and tried to point the finger at them and saying they're lying. I did not read anything like that. Maybe it happened. Maybe I missed it. But in the reading that I did not see anything saying it was all them. And I remind you once again that Kortne and Cody never once called the police. But I did see smoke inside the house, and before bed, I had the smoke. Yeah, Stephen, what's up new to the show? I'm talking about the disappearance of Kortne Stouffer right now, Stephen. Welcome. Good to see you. Trying to do some analysis. Probably going to be doing this not too much longer. But thanks for joining in. Thanks for asking. So my big question is, Of course, the big question is, why didn't anyone at Kortne's apartment answer when police showed up the last time? We have to remember, Kortne went missing. Cody did not. Cody says he didn't hear them banging on the door. We have to think to ourselves, is that believable? Now, very well may he's drunk, he's passed out, and he did say that he said that he and Kortne were there, and of course, he claims she went to bed. He got up, she was gone. You know, we know what we think of when men tell those stories. He claims didn't hear it. And this is the big question. What changed between the second time and the third time? We don't know. So that would be something that really also really needs to be decided. Is it possible that Cody didn't hear it? Because we have to figure the police at this point are all pissed off. And I can't blame them for knocking on the door and leaving simply because they thought, man, finally, everything's toned down here. Maybe these people just finally ran out of alcohol, ran out of gas, collapsed, and we don't have to worry about this. I don't blame, even though I'm going to complain about police a little bit before we're done tonight. I don't blame the police in this situation at all. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Bust down the door? They're not going to do that. They're going to give it some time. As long as the place is quiet, that's all they can do. Now, I think if they'd have left and this, the pounding on the ceiling started again, then it very well may be they might have broken in. If they go back there again, and now it's like the people are trying to avoid them, then the police are going to get ticked. Then they're going to bust in. But I can understand why they did not do that this last time. I don't know how other people think about it, what other people think about it. I don't think it's that weird. Would also add, it doesn't seem that Cody has ever made any comment about Kortne and what she was doing. He never, at least from what I have seen, he didn't say anything like, yeah, I was trying to get her to stop pounding on the floor, but she wouldn't. I tried to tell her that they're going to call the police again and that you're going to go to jail. Stop doing that. He didn't say, well, you know what? I have to admit I was a little drunk. I was joining in it too. I regret it now. I apologize. But yeah, I was a little drunk and I was a little ticked off as myself. Nothing about any of this pounding on the ceiling has ever been commented on by Cody. So what was going on? Was she doing this and he had passed out already? For this third time? Maybe. Could be, but I think it's notable that just couldn't find anything in depth quoted where Cody made a comment about all the banging around that Kortne seemingly was doing. And like I said, I'm choosing to believe that the calls from the downstairs neighbors are true. So that seems to be of this puzzle. This also seems to be a missing piece. No, Cody's never commenting on Kortne's actions about what was going on in there. And did he actually see her go to bed? Did she go to bed first? Did he go to bed first? Did he pass out? Even if he was sticking around, maybe so he could have sex with Kortne. What is the step-by-step process after the police left the second time until they showed up the third time? What are we saying here? It's a little unclear, but it very well may be he's so drunk he doesn't remember, and we know that does happen. Did look at the weather for that night. Beautiful, as like I stated before. It's July. It's late July in Pennsylvania. Just a beautiful time of the year in Pennsylvania. It's beautiful. Didn't read anything about it raining. Of course, during the summer in Pennsylvania, it can rain. Of course, in Pennsylvania, it could rain any day of the year. It's like Florida. Anything is possible. But I didn't look that up. But I think what I'm saying here, once again, it's July in Pennsylvania at night. it's a beautiful, at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, it's a beautiful time to go for a walk. How safe it would be in Palmyra, I don't know. But from a weather point of view, if it wasn't raining, it's beautiful. I think what's also notable is if Kortne was walking the streets, somehow police didn't pass her on the way to the last call. So if we're to think that she's banging on the ceiling, bothering the neighbors, they call for the third time, and then she leaves and Cody doesn't notice. The police go to that call. They didn't pass her on the streets of Palmyra going there. Now, of course, they're not all coming from, there wasn't like 10 cop cars showing up. But I think it is notable that they didn't see her on the streets while they were driving to it. Very well be if they're coming from one direction, it could be any other direction. But this is something also that I think is notable to me. And they wouldn't even had to have been looking for it. It's 4 a.m. So there's that. So, Stephen, welcome in. Marcy agrees with me. Always smart to agree with me, Marcy. Hello, Rockford, making his first appearance tonight. Good evening. I grew up about 25 miles from where Kortne disappeared. Palmyra is a safe bedroom community, small town, bordering on rural. Very, very low crime. Thank you, Rockford, for adding that in. I was not aware of that. Thank you. So like I said, I think when I started this, we can see why this is a tough disappearance to analyze, because we have a lot of possible suspects. We have the people downstairs. I would say if it's the people downstairs, it's all the people downstairs. It's not just one of them. If you want to suspect them, fine with me. I particularly do not. But if you're going to do that, I think that you have to believe all of them together did something. Whether she went down and they got in a fight and they beat her up, surely all three of them downstairs would know about that. So we got them. Of course, we got the friend who just happened to stick around, this Cody guy. We might also have to take a look at anybody who was at the party. Remember, this all started with a party at Brad and Kortne's place that got busted up by the cops because the downstairs neighbors called the cops. Brad gets taken away. Could any of those people have gone back there, picked Kortne up or something? Maybe, but I haven't heard any news about anybody others showing up or somebody trying to call her or text her. I haven't heard anything about that. We have to remember that Kortne, for some reason, got into an argument, a notable argument with some people at a local bar. This would mean more to me. I think this would be more insightful if I knew more about Kortne herself. Was she prone to these things? Was she prone to a lot of drinking? Probably. Being that she's living with a guy who's underage and they're in big beer parties and everything, probably she was. And so who else is there? What else could it be? It could be that she just walked off. And maybe somebody came along and picked her up. Somebody she knew, being that it's a small bedroom, safe bedroom community. Maybe one of her friends cruising around picked her up and something happened there. Just a random type of thing. Because once again, there's no record of her calling anybody, texting anybody. And we have to remember her phone was in her place, the keys, the car, all of that was still there. My best guess at this point, given the work that I did to put this this analysis together, I know I'm always Mr. Boring with my theories. I think she walked off. My second choice would be that Cody is responsible. Did he try to get fresh with her, as they used to say back in the 50s or 40s or 50s or whatever? Did he try to get fresh with her? She resists and something happens. He kills her, maybe even by accident, and then he has to get rid of her. There are no facts to dispute that. The problem, even though I realize there's some, holes in this story regarding Cody, those holes could just simply exist because he was never asked, or that's information that the police doesn't want to make public. I just don't know. But being that I'm looking at a young woman who's making some bad choices in her life, she's getting into arguments with a neighbor. She's continuing to get into arguments with the neighbor. She's getting in an argument with people at this bar. She's obviously drunk. She's drinking and driving. She's making bad choices. On and on and on. This seems to set up for a thing where it very well could be that she walked off, needed to blow off some steam. She's stressed out. Could be maybe she thought that her boyfriend was going to jail for a year. She's living in a place where she's not on the lease, so she might get kicked out. And where's she going to go? And she took off. And it very well may be that she died of alcohol poisoning. We don't know what she took. She could have taken a big bottle of Jägermeister with her. How would you know that? There wouldn't be anybody there that really could document that. So at this point, I'm going with that she walked off. And something went on there. Maybe because she knew, and like I stated before, if she knew that the downstairs neighbor called the cops again, she would have to know that she's going to jail this time. I don't think there's any dispute about that. She might have taken off because of that. Just be gone when they show up. And while she's out, something happens. These things happen. Alcohol poisoning, drunk walking around in the woods. She's trying to hide from the cops. She goes into the woods, and there are woods around there, hits her head, hasn't been found. And we of course, just talking about Chance Engelbert, Jesse Farber, Zach Carey, all guys who wandered off, and searches were done. Nothing was found. No, nothing was found. It very well be that they searched for Kortne and nothing is found as well. I'm not surprised by that. Could be that she was delusional, and being that she knew Brad was down at the jail, maybe she was going to try to walk there or something like that. I don't know about Stephen. I don't know about any history of drugs. I'm just trying to go by everything that I could compile for the show tonight. It doesn't even really matter to me whether drugs were involved or not. The amount of alcohol that was going on that night into that early morning, I think would be enough. I think it would be enough to cause problems. Rockford, Harrisburg, by contrast, is very rough for being such a small city. If she's running with a crew from there, it's a different story. Harrisburg is about 10 to 15 miles from Palmyra, but a different world. Okay, thank you. The Cake, are the woods there difficult to search? I've never been there. All I can do is look at Street View and Satellite View. I think any search comes down to how much work do searchers want to put in. It's not the Allegheny National Forest. It's not the Pacific Northwest. Are there some woods around there? Yes. It's not New York. It's not downtown New York City. Rockford, according to my research, minor drug use, likely not a factor. Steve, what was Brad arrested for? What was the charges? Underage drinking. But it seems to me he had been in trouble before. This was not his first brush with the law. He got taken away because the downstairs neighbors called it in on him that there was a party going on upstairs. There were underage drinkers there. Police show up, and they take Brad away. That's what happened. So at this point, I think that she walked off and something happened. I think. I know that that's not a very satisfying theory to some people, and it leaves a lot of loose ends out there. But a lot of these disappearances like this leave a lot of loose ends. Chance Engelbert's, Zach Carey's, Jesse Farber's. Well, we know where they were. Why can't they be found? Well, that's the way it goes a lot of times. So that's where I am. Would certainly not rule out talking to somebody in Kortne's family about all this. I did not in preparation for this, doing this, the show tonight. And that's the best I can do under the circumstances. My guess is that a lot of people think there's foul play. Somebody said that, like Cody for this, I can understand that. That's certainly not crazy. It's just at this point a little hard then to understand what happened. Of course, if it happened, it had to have been rape, and as an instigator for it, probably. So we'd need to know more about Cody. I don't know about Cody. And certainly if we were to find out in the last 12 years he has assaults on his record and rape charges on his record, on and on and on, certainly then my opinion would change, but I did not look that up. It does seem that, he did talk to investigators, but on the other hand, maybe he was looking for his opportunity and this was it, and she didn't go along with it. And so there's that. But, the problem I have is he knows the cops keep showing up. He knows that the banging's going on. He knows the cops are going to show up again. What exactly are we talking about? Would he really do that knowing the cops keep showing up? Would that not get him caught? You'd think it would. So what exactly then was going on here? Do you really try to rape a woman knowing that the cops are showing up every hour? It seems like a bad choice among all possible choices. Very similar setting, demographics, etc. to where I grew up on the other side of Harrisburg. You can go from town to town in a mile or two. A girl her age in reasonable shape could walk it. Okay. Rockford, being that you know the area and certainly know this disappearance, have you ever formed an opinion over the years? And of course, anybody else you want to get in on this for your theories, please do so as well. So this is Kortne Stouffer, somewhat well-known disappearance. I'm guessing a lot of people go in the foul play direction. That's not where I am at this point. So that's Kortne Stouffer. Hope you found that interesting. I do need to get a couple things out of the way before I continue. I still got these other two stories that I need to do. Want to remind all of you this Thursday, first time this semester, me and Dr. T are getting together. Dr. Telesco on her YouTube channel, Official College of Education School of Criminal Justice YouTube channel. That will be 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. And I will be going over stats accumulated by my first uses of the new database, not public yet, but I've had a chance to, I'm getting used to using it, and I'm going to end up doing a video on how to use it very, very soon. We're going to be going through some of the stats so far that have come out of the database that was put together by myself and Kathy, then with help from my buddy Cameron, because they've been doing studies and things like that, analysis this whole semester on her show. And so I get to come in and do a presentation on disappearance statistics, at least using the disappearances that have been on Unfound. That's what we will discuss on Thursday. I just put a PowerPoint presentation together for her today that we will use on Thursday evening. Once again, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be on her channel, Official College of Education School of Criminal Justice YouTube channel. All right, I want to move on to this Cremains story. Let me read it to you. Federal investigators are reportedly searching for answers after more than 300 piles of cremated human remains were discovered in the desert near Las Vegas. The discovery was first reported after a local man stumbled upon the remains in July outside Searchlight, Nevada, which is south of Las Vegas. You would go through that. If you're going south to Arizona, you might go through Searchlight. Been through that little town many times. It is a speed trap. Big time. Yeah, it's nearly an hour south of Las Vegas. Very familiar with that. Been through there many, many times. By August, officials from the U.S. Bureau of Land Management had confirmed that the Powells were human. The remains, pulverized bone fragments known as cremains, were said to have been found spread across a desolate stretch of land on the outskirts of the city. On Wednesday, crews from Palm mortuaries and cemeteries removed approximately 315 piles of the cremains from the site. While the BLM and Las Vegas Metro Police reportedly continue to investigate, the origins of the remains aren't clear. Early reports suggested that the ashes may have been dumped by a commercial funeral home business. Under Nevada law, people are allowed to scatter ashes on public land, and there's no prohibition against the scattering of cremated remains in general. So, if you've seen these stories, you'll then notice that the headlines for this story are much different than what the stories actually say. If you read the stories, it's like bunch of remains found out in the desert, outside of Las Vegas. Well, none of that is true. I would not say that Searchlight is what we would say outside of Las Vegas. It's an hour away. In addition, the remains it's not like a bunch of skulls. We're sitting out there, 315 skulls or femurs or something are sitting out there. It's 315 pounds of remains. You know, if you get somebody cremated, what ends up in that urn, that's what those were. That's what those are. And in addition, it's not even illegal to do this. So once again, you see the difference between the headline that seems all crazy. There's something going on here. It's a serial killer dumping remains outside of Las Vegas too. This isn't quite as sensational as the headlines would lead you to believe. And in fact, it might be illegal, but there is plenty of room to believe that it's not illegal. Now, I did look into this. There's another story. I don't know if I copied it. I didn't put it in here. But the actual law, at least in Nevada, is yes, people are allowed to scatter ashes on public land. So the ashes being there is not necessarily illegal. Of course, it was on private property or whatever, then yeah, there's going to be some issues. But it was on Bureau of Land Management land, so it's legal. What is illegal is if a mortuary or a funeral home charged people to do that. So if this is a funeral home or someplace that was charging people to get rid of their remains and then they were going out and putting it on public land, that is what illegal. Of course, also, if these funeral homes were, saying they're, people want their loved ones cremated and they get their urn with the ashes in it, they didn't put ashes in it. They just put just like dirt or something in there. And if there's fraud involved, then obviously the law was broken here. There's no proof of any of that right now. No proof of any of that right now. It's just, I think they're just a little like, well, if it was just a couple miles, probably, of course, this would not make the news at all. But it being that they have 315 piles of remains, at this point, it very well may be they're suspecting something illegal, but I think they just want to get a better handle on this situation to actually understand what is going on here. Well, if somebody is doing it, we're not saying that anything illegal. It might be. We need to check into this. But just because the cremains are there does not make any of this illegal, and it's certainly not sensational. There's not a serial killer or anything, and we know to make human remains become that, how difficult you need. Certainly, there's some mortuary / cemetery, / funeral home involved in this. Certainly. And they've established these are humans. These aren't like pets that have been cremated. Maybe there is some animals mixed in, but they're really pushing the idea these are all human remains. So what do I think's going on here? I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know enough about the funeral business. Certainly, there's been a lot of fraud over the years in the funeral home business, with bodies not getting put in caskets and people being given dirt instead of the actual remains, the dust of the person and things. Certainly, that has all gone on over the years, certainly. But that doesn't sound like what is going on in here, unless they're to be able to identify somehow some of these remains to an actual person. They go to that family and they have an urn of the alleged person and know that the remains are actually out there in the desert. Of course, that's going to be bad, end up being bad for somebody. So I just wanted to tell you about that. You've probably seen the headline. Maybe you haven't read the story and you're thinking, well, that sounds crazy. It's really not that crazy at all. It very well may be that one idea that comes to mind, it's just an idea, no proof of this, that maybe these were the remains of homeless people. Were these homeless people dead and then they were cremated and then the mortuary just took their remains out into the desert because they didn't know what else to do with them. It's possible. Now, on the other hand, we need to remember this. Searchlight, like I said, is an hour away from Las Vegas. It's 315 piles of remains. If that many people were missing in Searchlight, everybody would know. So it seems that probably, of course, you could get over there from Kingman as well, Kingman, Arizona. It certainly seems like somebody is bringing in those remains and on purpose dumping them there from far away. But it doesn't seem like they're necessarily hiding them. It would seem that somebody would realize after a while, you start putting 315 piles out here, somebody is eventually going to find them. So I'll be interested to see the end of this story, but I just don't think this is as anything close to the big deal that has been made by the headlines out there. So there you go. Hello, Maureen. What's going on with you? Serenity, hi to you. Sharon, good to see you. Getting here in it with 20 minutes to go in the show. And Steven said, remains in the desert while shocking. Well, yeah, dead bodies being found in the desert, not unusual, as we know, because of the mob and everything else. But cremains, 350 cremains being found outside of Searchlight, certainly an interesting story, but I don't think this is organized crime or mafia or gang related at all. I would be stunned. COVID deaths? Maybe. I don't know why then. We have to then put together why the remains are out there in the middle of nowhere. Very well be. I just don't know. Why couldn't it be deaths from something else? I don't know. Maureen driving near Salton, Washington, the Sultan of Swing, Washington. Maureen to call Dire Straits. Recall Dire Straits. Okay, so that is the cremain story. I wanted to put a more sensible spin on it, being that I saw that story everywhere, it seems. Just some other things. The new Unfound now is out, where I look at the disappearance of James Cole, who parked his truck and seemingly went walking on a trail, never to return. That happened August 31st. And then for all of you YouTube and Patreon supporters, I looked at the disappearance to discovery of Danny Philippidis from Canada. He is the guy who went skiing in New Hampshire and then 6 days later ended up in California. So I hope you've had a chance to partake in that. For the rest of you who are not yet YouTube or Patreon supporters, please sign up and you can see my coverage of that very, very unique disappearance to discovery. I'm just finally glad that we know this guy's name so we can, take a look at it. The Cake says, I remember funeral places getting overwhelmed by bodies during COVID, but I don't know if things got to that level outside of New York City. Right. So that's maybe what Stevens got possible. Maybe they got overwhelmed. It's just unclear to me. This would then certainly have been someplace in Kingman or Las Vegas. Why drive that far to do that? Of course, they have disposal places, on their properties. So that's, I don't know. I'm sure it had to do with Searchlight's most famous resident not going there. Yeah, I will go there. What Rockford is talking about. Former senator of Nevada, Harry Reid, who is now deceased, is from Searchlight, Nevada. He who his name now adorns the airport in Las Vegas. Yes, he is from Searchlight, Nevada. All right, let's talk the rest of the time where police go wrong. I'm bringing this up because for the first time since 2006, I got pulled over by a cop on early Saturday morning. I was coming back with my brother Michael from my brother Brian's in Polk City after our trip. And I got over, where is it? Over here near the Clearwater Aquarium. And like Searchlight, Nevada, it is certainly a speed trap where it goes from 45 to 40 to 35 to 30 very quickly. Very quickly. And I know the cops sit there, and I will tell you for the record, I don't know how fast I was going. All right, I will tell you that. And even when the cop asked me that, I really couldn't offer an answer. He asked me what the speed limit was there. I couldn't answer him. He asked me how fast I thought I was going. At least I thought he asked me that. I couldn't answer. But I was driving back. I didn't think I was going that fast. And once again, I'm not saying I was speeding. I don't know. And I don't know. So we were coming down there, and there were other cars around me. And that was the thing that my brother Michael, point he made as we were sitting there waiting for this cop to walk up, is that, there were a bunch of cars around us going about. It's not like I was blowing by people. There were other cars around me. So if I were speeding, we were all speeding. We were all speeding. So what happened was he came flying up behind me, put on his lights. I pulled over there, very near where the Circle is in Clearwater Beach. They have one of those roundabouts. Got to go. I'm working tonight. Drum tech for Great White. We'll see you all next time. Kathy rocks. You are drum tech for Great White. Really, Steven? My favorite band from high school? Really? Well, you should have mentioned that when you came in, Steven. I would have loved to have talked to you about that. Oh, my goodness. Love Great White. Not my favorite band now. Love Great White. Sorry they had to split up and go different ways. And Jack Russell, rest in peace. That's fantastic. That is so, wait till I tell all my friends. That's going to be fantastic. Well, Steven, thanks for joining in tonight. Great to see you. Thank you for comments as well. He pulled me over, lights on. And where I'm going with this is where police go wrong. And this can be applied to disappearances and all sorts of things. I don't need a lecture, man. Now, you should know something. He pulled me over. I'll get into how it went. He claimed I was speeding. He claimed I was doing 42 miles an hour in a 30, so 12 miles an hour over the speed limit. And you should know the last time I got pulled over, I was in Las Vegas. I was doing 62 in a 35. Yes, really. Bad. And I was probably speeding that time. But he asked me for my license and registration. I gave him my license. He wanted my registration and insurance card. I gave him an expired. Now, my car is registered, but I couldn't find my current registration card in the glove box. I gave him an expired one, and I couldn't find my insurance card. He did not give me a ticket. And I know what all of you are saying. How can that be? He says you were speeding. You couldn't provide documentation. He still didn't give you a ticket. That's what happened. And my brother Michael was Ed, just be happy. He can complain. You're going to complain how you were treated and everything. Just be happy you didn't get a ticket. Just be happy about that. Here's what I think was going on. And I'll get back to the interaction I had with this guy. And he wasn't, what was he? I don't think he wasn't Clearwater Police. I think he was Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I think. But what I think was going on, I think it was a random DUI pullover. Steven, yes, Jack Rebel was the best singer, the great Zeppelin album with the best. We'll talk soon. That is fantastic. I'm going to tell all my friends, Steven. Thanks. This made my night. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me time. And so neat to meet interesting people in the music business. That is fantastic. That's cool. All right. So he didn't give me a ticket. I think that it was a random DUI. How do you get pulled over for going 12 miles over the speed limit, not provide proper documentation, and not get a ticket? Maybe because you weren't speeding. D says, nope, he was looking to see what color you were, sir. Maybe you saw the long hair. I don't know. My brother Brian said they might have been hippie targeting. But because I've never gone. I don't know if you're allowed to do DUI checkpoints in Florida. I don't know. But I'm still thinking, did he just randomly pull me over as some sort of random thing? So there's that. I'm not saying, but what I don't want is a lecture. And this cop lectured me. And, or whatever they were looking for if you weren't it. I don't know, Maureen. I mean, a lot of white sonatas out there, so that's possible. It's no wonder. People make mistakes. I'm not saying that I was speeding. But if I were speeding, it was surely by accident. And I realize there are a lot of people out there speeding on purpose. I've even done that a few times. But you have to realize a lot of people get pulled over, especially when you have a speed trap. They get pulled over. They are speeding by mistake. But he was like, I'd given him my license. He gives it back to me. And then he asked me, do you live around here? And I'm thinking to myself, you just looked at my driver's license. It says 1340 Gulf Boulevard. I can see my building from where I'm parked here. And he still asked me if I live nearby. And then when I say, yeah, I live right down the street, he goes, well, then you should know that the speed limit is. And I don't need a lecture, man. I don't need a lecture. I don't need a lecture as if I'm 15 and my mother's telling me I need to make my bed. To all of you police out there, I don't know who is teaching you this. I don't know who is teaching you. And you should know, I'm pretty much a law-abiding citizen. I haven't been pulled over since 2006. I don't drink and drive because I don't drink. I, of course, don't do drugs. I don't steal anything. There's no domestic violence in my life ever. I've never had a felony, misdemeanor. The worst thing that I ever had happen to me is I got caught street racing. And I only got a speeding ticket for that. And that was way back in like 1992. And Lord knows I'm really happy for all the other times I didn't get caught or I'd have been in jail. But if you're treating me, and of course they can look up my registration, they know who I am, it's going to pop up if there are any charges against me, nothing. If you're treating me like I'm a 15-year-old, it's no wonder cops have problems with people. It's no wonder. And as I'm sitting there and I'm thinking I'm going to get a ticket, because my mind is so linked into disappearances all the time. In fact, we went right by going to Key West. We went right by where Jennifer Perry went missing in Marathon, Florida. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking it's no wonder these people have problems solving things and why the crime rate and why they only close 50% of murders. Who is teaching you all of this stuff? Who is teaching you that when you go up, your job is to enforce the law? That's it. It's not to give lectures as if you were my parent. And surely looking at this cop, I was older than he is. Not by a lot. What are you doing giving a driver a lecture about it? It drives me nuts. You have a job to do. I respect that. If I was breaking the law, I deserve a ticket. Okay? I'm not saying I was breaking the law. I have my suspicions I wasn't. But this doesn't help. These days, with people complaining about the police and all this, defund the police and everything else, if all adults are getting pulled over by police and getting lectures from them, instead of just saying, you know what, you were doing 42 and a 30, caught you on the radar, let's see your information. Oh, you don't have it? There you go. I have a job to do. I know you think you weren't speeding. I have a job to do. That's just the way it is. But if you're going to say, well, where do you live? Right down the street. Well, then you come by this way a lot, don't you? I guess I do. Well, then you should know the speed limit. I drive a lot of places. I can't memorize all the speed limits all around the places that I go, down Gulf Boulevard, on Almerton, on Belcher, on Starkey, and all. There's no way to remember every speed limit on every street. That is impossible. But that's what this guy was telling me I should be able to do. It's insulting. If I broke the law, just give me the ticket, man. I felt the same way back in 2006 when I know I was speeding there. I'll admit to that one. I was doing 62 in a 40 or a 35. Long story, no time for to be told now. But I did the same thing. He's coming up asking me all these questions. He was not rude like the guy was on Saturday morning. It was a Nevada Highway Patrol guy that got me that time. But, it was the same thing. Don't you know what the speed is? No. Do you know how fast you're going? No. Do you know what the speed limit is? No. There's no reason that those questions need to be asked. Because it feels like a lecture. You're not in the lecture business. You are in, may have been trying to get you to talk to assess your sobriety, see if your breath would give it away, and buy time for himself to see what he can see in your card. It's bad policing. It's certainly bad policing. There are a lot of different ways to have conversations with motorists instead of treating them like children. Now, I know a lot of motorists are children, figuratively, and act like children and everything else. I get it. But we could have had a conversation just like, hey, were you aware that we got you doing 42 and a 35? Because I even said something like, do you know how fast you were going? Would you believe that you were doing 42 and a 30 or something like that? And I really didn't know what to say. And I said, if you say so, are you saying I'm lying? And he comes back at me, are you saying I'm lying? I said, I'm not saying anything. I don't know. I'm just agreeing with you. That happened. There's a badge cam, I guess, out there. They turn on their badge cams. There's a badge cam out there on some computer right now that shows this, I guess. A-hole. And, it's one of those things, as I've said before, of course, having nothing to do with me getting pulled over. I've said this before. Doing this job, as much as I love Julia Cowley, FBI, as much as I love Dr. Telesco, as much as I love Adam Turner up there in Ohio, as much as I, think Jeff Hagee did a great interview a couple weeks ago, I cannot tell you how horribly my opinion of police have dropped over the last 9 years of doing this podcast. I cannot even begin to explain it to you. And I'm a person who, for the most part, has not had a lot of run-ins with the police. But I will tell you, my run-ins with the police in my lifetime have sucked, going back to when I was even in my 20s. I once got pulled over by a Pennsylvania state cop for going too slow. And he, once again, also was the same way. What is going on? So for police out there, if you complain about the public, it very well may be you treat them like children. Now, I know, I get it. You know, a crap job sucks. Pulling people over, you're afraid they're going to run off. You're going to get shot for pulling somebody over for doing 42 and a 30. I know. I see all the videos too. But when you're in the middle of talking to a guy who lives right down the street and you're asking him, do you live down the street, when you just saw his license, when you're trying to have an argument with him, when he's trying to agree with you, that is a problem. And my brother Michael agreed with me. He was like, just be happy you didn't get a ticket. I understand. But he also agreed this guy was an a-hole. It's like he was looking for an argument with me. And this is where police go wrong. This is more of just the same. It sucks. It sucks. And I don't even care if he sees this. I've told the truth on this. I don't know if I was speeding. I certainly didn't mean to speed. I wasn't in a rush to get home. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. So I wasn't doing any of that while I was drinking. My registration is current. My insurance is current, and I'm going to have to get that fixed so they're easier to find in the car. My license is good, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And you're treating me like I'm 15. Trying to have an argument with me. It's bad. I don't know who thinks at the management level in police thinks that this is good and acceptable. I hope this, I'm hoping this was just a one-off, but I suspect it's not. I suspect that it's not. But I got pulled over. So that was somewhere 19 years since my last being pulled over. And I'm really not that fast of a driver, to be honest with you. So there you go. So that's when police go wrong. This is what I mean. We as humans, mature humans, don't need lectures. Sometimes we make mistakes. Speeding and other things. Sometimes. But I was shocked when those lights came on. I'm like, why is he pulling? Does he have does he have the right car? Likely didn't give a ticket because no probable cause for stop. Not to give a lecture myself, but my policy is to give them documents, but tell them I'll answer questions in court. Well, you're the lawyer, Rockford. I was just like, whatever, man. And that's the way I've always been with cops since day one. I'm like, whatever, man. You pulled me over. What do you want to say? Okay, whatever. Do you know how fast you're going? No. Do you know what the speed limit is? No. I don't have to know either of those things. It's not important. There's no law saying I have to know what my mile per hour is. I just need to know it for the sake of not speeding. There's no law saying I need to know the speed limit either. I can't get in trouble for that either. It doesn't matter. So, all right, this Friday, we're going to do a little statistical analysis. So you're going to see the show that I do with Dr. Telesco on Thursday evening. On Friday, I'm going to expound on all of it. And I'm going to incorporate some of Unfound's cases as examples, simply because I was gone and everything. I haven't been able to line up an interview. Of course, I was on a little vacation. Didn't do any disappearance work for 3 days. So, in fact, I didn't do any Saturday either because my brother Michael was over here, which is fine. We had a good time. So this Friday, I'm going to talk about this database. Going to tell you some of the interesting facts and figures that have come out of it so far. I'm going to talk about some cases in relation to those statistics. So you're going to hear about maybe some disappearances you haven't heard about in a while. That's what I'm doing this Friday. So that's all I have for you tonight. Got to Kortne, got the Las Vegas Cremains, got to where police go wrong, talked about Zach Carey, and so that is that. I hope you all have a great week. I'll see you next Monday. Do not end up on my podcast. Keep your heads on swivels out there. Please like, share, subscribe to this channel before leaving. Charlie, say hi to the kids for me. There's hardly kids anymore, right, Charlie? It's your sons for me. And like I said, all have a great week. Good night.